What's going on, growers? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. One of my favorite parts about the late spring is that's when the strawberries start coming in heavy. So today I want to share with you how to grow your own organic strawberries from your own backyard so you can be eating the sweetest strawberries you've ever had. Let's go! Strawberries grow best in full sun, but just because you have an area with a little partial shade doesn't mean you shouldn't grow strawberries. As you can see here, we're underneath some fruit trees and we've got a number of different things growing, including strawberries. We're getting some decent harvest from here. Not as great as our sections from full sun, but still we're getting a harvest. As I move up here too, we're in another section underneath some trees. We're getting a little more light, the strawberries are doing a little better. But if you're in a section where you do have partial shade, I definitely suggest growing some strawberries. One thing is they don't take up a lot of space on the ground, and another thing is you're actually still going to get a harvest no matter what. So worth it. Last year I brought you along when I planted strawberries out in the new food forest in the early spring. So today we're going to check on how they did and talk about how we went from just planting them to getting nice harvests. As you can see in this section here, this is one of the areas that I planted. It's thriving, it's doing really well. So let's talk about how we got here. If you want to grow your own strawberries, the first thing I suggest is to get bare root strawberries from a reputable company and try to get disease resistant varieties if you can. How healthy your plants are when you first plant them, how large the roots are going to make a big difference on how early you can get to success. Another thing is the timing to plant them. You want to plant them in the early spring when the ground first starts to warm. Strawberry plants tend to be relatively hardy too, so you don't have to wait until the ground is super warm like you would for something like peppers or tomatoes like that. When you receive your bare root strawberries in the mail, if your ground isn't just ready to plant yet, I suggest putting those strawberry plants in the refrigerator for a few days and keeping them moist, not soggy, not wet. Then when you're ready to plant, bring them outside, put them in a bucket, soak them in water for a little bit. And then the depth of how you plant your strawberries, how deep you plant them, and the way you plant them is going to make a big difference on your success as well. For instance, when you put your strawberries in, you want to dig out a section relatively deep so the roots don't have to get bunched up, and then make a cone. I'll show you some from in the spring when I planted it. You want to make a cone and let the roots cascade down the sides of that. Another important thing is to make sure that you don't bury all the crown. So when it comes to the crown, you're going to want about half of it in the ground and half of it above. You want to hold on to the crown when you're planting it to make sure you keep it level as you're pushing the dirt around it. And then where the top of the crown, where the leaves unfold, you want to make sure not to bury that completely, because again, that's where the leaves are going to come from. Something that I love about strawberries is that they send out the runners. They just give more and more. They're like the gift that keeps on giving. And this year, we're having our best strawberry harvest ever, by far. So that's encouraging, but that doesn't happen, with everything in the garden every single year. So in my opinion, it's important to have the right mindset. For instance, we want to see the donut, not just the hole in the donut. There's always something good, there's always something that we can be grateful for. So we got to make sure we appreciate those good things when they come. And I think that makes a big difference, for gardening or just even outlook in life. There's always, not everything is going to work perfect every single time, but again, that's what makes gardening so exciting. If you guys are enjoying the video, I ask that you hit the subscribe button, check out some of the merch. We're excited about dropping this, and it's something that we worked on and I'm just really proud of. So if you want to contribute, if you want to be a part of Team Grow, if you want to push that idea of food freedom further and further, check out the merch and hit the subscribe button. To the right of me where Tuck is walking, this is a section that we planted last spring. These are the Shuckson strawberries, a great variety. I'll talk about more as we harvest those. And in the center here, we planted a new variety just this year. So they're doing relatively well. I planted them in the spring. And one thing that is important when you're first planting your strawberries is you want to invest in the future. So what you want to do is after you have them planted, they'll start to flower. And within the first about 3 to 5 months, you want to make sure you remove all those flowers. This way the strawberries can focus on growing roots. After they've finished flowering and you've removed all those flowers, they'll start sending out runners and spreading and doubling all your production, maybe even tripling throughout the year, giving you a nice thick matted row. That's how we're going to be growing these strawberries just like the others. A nice thick mat, and we're doing it right between the fruit trees, so we're making sure to get the most out of the space that we actually have. When you have a new strawberry section planted like we have right here, a few things you want to keep in mind besides just taking off those flowers when they first come out is, number one, to make sure you're removing any weeds that are coming up. Any perennial weeds, especially things like crabgrass and stuff like that, because these roots on strawberries are relatively shallow, so we don't want any competition. Another thing is to make sure you have a thick mulch down. This mulch is not only going to keep the weeds out, but it's also going to keep a lot of the moisture in. So a few different kinds of mulches that work really well are the wood chips. I've had excellent luck with them, but also Straw is a fantastic mulch for growing strawberries. Strawberries will produce really well for a number of years, so it's a good idea to add new sections every few years. This way you could get rid of some of the old sections that aren't producing as heavily as they were in the past. That's why it's nice to have almost like a staggered. This one is a year behind the other ones. As these start to produce really well and one of the other ones slows down, we'll be able to have this one come through, and then we'll switch another section out. Another thing to think about is the variety. So variety is important because you want to make sure you're getting some disease-resistant ones, but you also want to make sure you're getting some excellent flavored ones. My favorite variety that I've ever had is one that I grew this year. It's producing really well. This is actually called a Sweetest Strawberry. They're a little oddly shaped, but the flavor, it's like nothing I've ever had. Literally as sweet as candy. When it comes to harvesting your own strawberries, there's a few things that you want to take into account. The first one is timing. The best time to harvest your strawberries is going to be the early morning when the berries are nice and cool. Another thing you want to take into account is actually how you pick it. There's a wrong and a right way to do it. So we'll grab this strawberry right here. And what we want to make sure we're doing is we're snapping the stem here as opposed to just yanking it by the strawberry. So we're just going to take this and pull that stem apart. This way we're not damaging the strawberry. What you don't want to do is pull it like this and have that happen. I mean, that's okay because you're still pulling from the stem, but sometimes you could pull it straight out like that. So this is the best way to eat the strawberries in my opinion. You can just pop the whole thing into your mouth. Look at the size of this. Definitely don't need a drink after that one. When your strawberries are starting to produce and put out heavy, it's a good idea to come out about every other day to pick them because they will ripen quick. So we're gonna go through and pick some of these Sweetest strawberries right here. Then we're also gonna go through and pick some of these jewel strawberries over here, which are also doing fantastic. When harvesting, you wanna make sure you remove any of the strawberries that are bit, any of them that are moldy or anything. This way it'll reduce the chances of spreading any disease throughout the whole patch. So I'll bring you along as we get some harvests and enjoy these delicious homegrown beyond organic strawberries. From just this one side of the row of strawberries, we harvested this whole thing here, which is excellent. So we still got that side and then the other whole row of strawberries. Nothing like having the fresh grown ones in your own backyard, producing heavy. We're gonna put a number of these into the refrigerator so we can eat them when they're nice and cool. Some of them will freeze, and then the other ones we may even make into a strawberry rhubarb pie. At the end of the growing season, when it starts to get cold, it's a good idea to cover all your strawberries with a mulch, something like straw, over the winter. This way your strawberries won't freeze and then rethaw, then freeze, then rethaw. If you're in a section that has snow over the top all winter, that's okay too. That'll form an insulation. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. As you can see, we got a nice harvest from the garden. We'll be back out in a few days to get even more. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends. Don't forget to check out the merch if you want to support Team Grow, if you want to support food freedom. We'll see you in the next one. James Prigioni Talk, we out.